So now, was this part written by the same Isaiah or a second Isaiah, which theologians and Bible scholars call Deutero-Isaiah? Now, let's see why they think the original Isaiah, that is Isaiah of Jerusalem, could not have written this part, that is chapters 40 to 55. Now, this section, unlike the first section, was written to those in exile. So it's like whoever wrote this book, this part 40 to 55, was with them there in exile. And the theologians and the Bible scholars are saying this was hundreds of years after Isaiah. So he was not there, so he couldn't have written this. It must have been one of his disciples who penned this part and added it to Isaiah's work. They don't dispute chapters 1 to 39. They say, yeah, that was written by the original Isaiah of Jerusalem. But they're saying the rest of the book was not. So this second part, they're saying because the events that happened, there is no way that Isaiah would have known about it, except he was there and he couldn't have been there at that time. So what do you think? I'm going to make my own comments at the end, but what do you think? You know, comment in the comment box and let us know your thing. So let's have a debate about this. So anyway, so Isaiah, because if it's the original Isaiah or it's the disciples or whoever wrote the rest of the book, maintain the name Isaiah. So I am going to say Isaiah. So Isaiah was now talking to the exiles, the children of Judah in exile, saying, comfort ye, they will be comforted. He's bringing them good news from God, and they should hope in the Lord. If they do, they will renew their strength. They will soar like eagles, and they will not grow weary. They will walk and not be tired. And God is telling the exiles, those in Babylon, to not to fear and to put their trust in him. He says everything that happened to them was down to him. God was the one who allowed it to happen. So there's nothing that happens that God did not permit in his own way and for his own reason and purpose. So if you just remember that when you're going through anything, God allowed it because he had a reason for it. I know that now because of what happened to me and what I'm doing now. So I know God allowed it. He permitted it. He used that person to bring me out so God can take me in. So God here is challenging the idols to prophesy, or let them even do something good or even something bad. He says they are absolutely worthless. These idols are worthless. They are unable to give counsel. They are unable to answer. Their images are wind and confusion. The images can be burnt and the ash can be scattered all over the place. They're just totally nonsense. So in chapter 42, God introduces the servant of the Lord, and he will put his spirit on this servant. The servant will be fair and he'll be just. He will not break a bruised reed. This we can also see in Matthew 12, 18 to 21. So you can see this part here is speaking about Jesus. The scholars do not dispute this. He's speaking about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I doubt even then that Isaiah knew what he was talking about. If he knew the enormous, what this part actually meant, if he knew that he was talking about Jesus Christ, he probably did not even realize it himself. But here Jesus is spoken about, and God is saying that he will not give his glory to anyone, not to idols, not to any man. Who handed Israel and Judah over to the enemies? God is asking them. He said it was him. Was it not I, the Lord, against whom you have sinned? He handed them over, not any idols, not any man, but he himself handed them over. He said, however, they will sing to the Lord a new song. They will sing a song of praise. But those who are saying to the images, you are our gods, they will be in utter shame. They will be utterly disgraced. Those who are relying on idols, those who are relying on flesh, the arm of flesh, So God is saying that they should not fear. Israel have been redeemed. God has now redeemed them. God is with them even though they are in exile. So when they are passing through the water, when they are passing through the fire, he is going to be with them. He has not abandoned them. He has not forsaken them. God is still with them even though they are in exile, because all this that happened is it's his doing. He's the one who orchestrated it, but he's still with them. He has not forsaken them. And even if you remember back in the book of Ezekiel that we have done, God's glory left the temple in Jerusalem and he joined the people in exile. So even though they were in exile, God did not leave them. And remember when Moses said, if your presence does not come with us, I'm not going anywhere. So God still followed his people. Even when they were in the wilderness wanderings, God was still there. And he's still with us today because he's omnipresent. So even if when we're going through a very low point in our life, just remember that God is there with us. He hasn't forsaken us at all. He's there. When we're going through good tidings, good news, God is there. Likewise, when we're going through our downtime, which we'll all face, God is still with us in there. So God is telling them that Egypt and Cush and Sheba have been taken as a ransom for Israel. So they will go back. Their ransom has been paid by these heathen and wicked nations. So God is saying he will bring them all back together, and all the nations will know that there is no other God. He is the living God. When they see what he's going to do, because now it seems like it's impossible. They can't come back together. How is that going to be? They're captured. They're in a foreign land. They're not at home. They're scattered all over the place. God says when the other nations see this, they will know that yes, he has already foretold it and it came to pass. Then all nations will know that he is the true God, not those idols that they are worshiping, that have eyes and cannot see. They can't speak, they can't give counsel, they can't do anything. You use your hand to make this idol. You bow before it, you say, this is my God. God says that day, all nations will know that he is the Lord of Lords. So he says for Israel's sake, God is going to destroy Babylon. And Israel should remember how he brought them out of Egypt, how he parted the Red Sea, how he conquered the enemies before them, how they were settled in the land. So how he gave them manna to eat, how he brought water from the rock. They should remember all of this. So now it seems like they are in exile again, but he will bring them out and he will take them back home to the promised land. He says he will do a new thing in their life. He will make a way in the wilderness where there seems to be no way. So even if you are going through a situation where it seems you can't get out of this is just impossible, remember that God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He will be with you through the waters, through the fire. He will never leave you. He will not forsake you. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So God is saying that the animals, they honor God because he gives them food and he gives them water. Israel have not honored him. He gives them food and he gives them water, but they don't honor him. Instead, they have made him tired and weary with their sins, but he has not made them tired and weary with sacrifices. Because if we look back at the Levitical law, the sacrificial law, God made a way for people. He says, okay, if you cannot afford a cow, you bring this. If you cannot afford that, you bring a lamb. If you cannot afford a lamb, you bring a pigeon. If you cannot afford a pigeon, you bring a flour, grain offering. So God made that provision so that people will not be put under unnecessary burden, under unnecessary bondage. And God is now saying here that he hasn't put burden. He has not made the people weary with their sacrifices, but they have made him weary with their sins. So he's saying he will pour out his spirit on all flesh. This has been spoken about also by other prophets. Everybody will know that he is the Lord. Everybody will belong to him. He is the first and the last. He is the Alpha and the Omega. Apart from him, he says, there is no God. Who is like him? He's asking. Let everybody proclaim his name, that he is the Lord of Lords. So he says the idols, they are for nothing. Those who speak up for them, they are blind, just as the idols are blind. The blacksmith and the carpenters, they made this idol themselves. They carved it, they fashioned it, and they put it and worshiping it and saying, save me, you are my God. It says, isn't this foolishness? When can't they even stop to think that I use this wood to cook, I make my roast on it, I eat, and I will now take the rest of the wood and make an idol and say it is my God? That can't they even stop to think, that why should I bow down before a block of wood? He says none of them think about this, but they call it their God. He says Israel will return to him. They have been redeemed. God has redeemed them. He did not sell them with money, so he will redeem them back without money. They have been redeemed. And here God now mentions the name of Cyrus, that Cyrus is his shepherd. God is going to use him to accomplish all that he pleases. Cyrus is going to say of Jerusalem that you can go back home, go and rebuild your temple, go and rebuild your walls, go and rebuild your city, and pray for me. And we can see this in the book of Ezra. In Ezra, God, Cyrus, the Persian king, after the Persian had overthrown Babylon, they now told all the nations that Babylon had conquered that they can go back home. And so this prophecy came to pass. This is also one of the reasons why the theologians are saying Isaiah couldn't have written this. How could he have known what would happen hundreds of years later? So that's also one of the reasons they are giving. What do you think? Comment below and let me know. So God says that he has appointed Cyrus. Cyrus is mentioned by name. Even though Cyrus is a heathen, he doesn't yet know the Lord. God will give him success. God will be with him. And by this, people will know that there's no other God beside the God of Israel. All nations will run to God. Every knee will bow and every tongue will confess and say that he is the Lord of Lords. After him, there is no other. So the fall of Babylon, their nakedness will be exposed, their shame will be uncovered. God used them because he was angry with his people, Judah. So he used the Babylonians to punish Judah, and they overdid it. They were too heavy-handed. God says what they did was wicked. Even the old people, they put heavy yoke on them. They did not have compassion. They did not have pity. Because God used them doesn't mean that they should not behave the way they behaved. So it reminded me of when I was I read the story of Corinne ten Boom. They helped the Jews to escape, during the time they were being persecuted. And so they were caught, that family were caught. They found out that they were helping the Jews to escape. And Corinne's sister, Betty, I think, or Bessie, I can't really remember. They were in the concentration camp, and she was sick, she was weak because there was no food, and she was in agony, and they were asking them to do this hard labor, and she couldn't. Each time she carried the load, she would fall under the weight. Each time she carried the load, she would fall under the weight. She couldn't manage it. So the guard was, however, saying the sister should carry that load. And she looked up at the guard and said, she can't carry this, she's very, very weak. And he forced her. The sister eventually died. So this is the kind of wickedness. Even if God had put those people there at that time for any other reason, he was wicked. He showed not an ounce of mercy. He overdid his hand. God says he will punish Babylon for that. Even though he sent them, they should not have been that wicked, that horrible to people. So God is saying that he will not become a widow, neither will he become childless. But Babylon, they will suffer it. So what God is saying here, that, because the Israel are known as God's bride, so he's not going to become a widow. That means that Israel are not going to disappear off the face of the earth. And he will not become childless. So Israel are not going to disappear. But Babylon, they will become widow and they become childless because of their wickedness. Because disaster will come upon them suddenly. And this happened when the Persian Empire overtook Babylon. Nobody believed that Babylon can fall. They were a very powerful empire. They ruled the world at the time. No one believed it, but it happened. And Persia were even a lesser nation than Babylon, and that happened. And if you remember the image in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, when Daniel interpreted it, the dream, that was it, because the gold was the head, which was Babylon, and the next one was the inferior silver, and that was Persia. And Persia overthrew Babylon eventually. So that dream came to pass. It was a prophecy from the Lord. So God is saying that Israel will be restored, except a mother can forget, even if a mother can forget her baby, God is not going to forget Israel. And the first time I read this, I thought a mother can't forget her baby. That's impossible. But now that I'm grown up, I know that a mother can forget her baby. I've seen lots of dysfunctional families split up with the mother saying that she never wants to see the child again. The child should go away, have disowned you, and the child, moms and kids taking themselves to court, over some petty issue, and in the court they will say that they will never speak to each other again and stuff like that. So it does happen that a mom and a child can split, and they will never speak again until one dies. They will never talk again. But God is saying that even though that can happen, he will not forget Israel. So he says that even when they are restored back to their land, that land will become too small for them. They will need a bigger land to become too small. So now it seems like, what is he talking about? We're just a few, we're a remnant here. How can that land be too small for us? But God is saying that that's what will happen, that all nations will then agree that Israel's God is God when they see that the land is too small for them. So he's now asking that, can plunder be taken away from a warrior? Or can captives be taken from the fierce? And God is saying yes, it can. Because the Israel are the plunder, the captives from Babylon has taken everything away from Israel, have taken the people. But God is saying that they can still come out. He can still rescue them from the hands of the fierce. God has not divorced Israel, and he has not sold them. So they will come back. He reminded them that Abraham was only one man when God called him, and he grew into a multitude. His descendants now like the sand on the seashore. They can't even be counted. So he said, God who dried up the Red Sea, who brought them out of Egypt, almost destroyed Egypt, he will do it again. So they should not fear mortal. So this is like a second Exodus. The first one was when they came out of Egypt, and this Exodus is them coming out of Babylon to go back home. So God has removed his cup of wrath from Jerusalem. They will no longer have to drink that bitter drink. He has removed it. He has forgiven them. So he's saying that when the news comes that they have been released, the watchman will shout for joy. The runner will bring good tidings. So it says, the feet of those who bring tidings, good feet, happy feet, happy feet. Those who bring good tidings, there will be great news. On that day, everybody will be rejoicing that they can finally go back home. They can finally go back home. All these prophecies at the time would seem unlikely, that, what are you talking about? But when it did happen, they were like those who dreamed that, we have been released from captivity. They could not believe it themselves. So here also he talks about the suffering servant, which the Jews do not believe is Jesus. He is Jesus. The theologians are not disputing this. The Bible scholars are not disputing this, but the theologians don't think it's Jesus. So here the suffering servant was introduced. He was talking about Jesus, that he had no beauty that anyone could see. He was despised, he was spat on, he was rejected by mankind. He was a man of sorrows, man of sorrows, Lamb of God, by his own betrayed. The sin of man and wrath of God has been on Jesus laid. Oh, that rugged cross, my salvation, where your love poured out over me. Now my soul cries out, hallelujah, praise and honor unto thee. A lovely song, Man of Sorrows. So here the suffering servant is a man of sorrows. He was rejected by those he created, those he came to save. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He did not say a word. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. By his stripes we are healed. God will restore Jerusalem after a brief abandonment. He abandoned them briefly. It's like a husband and wife going through a trial, separation. They're not divorced, but they're separated. That's how God saw it, that it was a trial. It was just an abandonment, but he's now bringing them back together. The trial separation is over. So, and God says that he swore that, as he said after the flood, Noah's flood, that he will never again destroy the earth with water. Here now he's also making another covenant that though the mountains be shaken and the hills removed, God's unfailing love will not be shaken from Israel. He will always love them. So even if the mountains are removed, even if the earth is shaking, his love for Israel will not shake. So that was another covenant that he made. So he made the first one. We saw the sign, the rainbow. This is a covenant that he made. So those who are saying that the covenant with Israel is over, the church is now the new Israel, I don't think you've read this. Go and read chapter 54 of Isaiah. God is saying here that his unfailing love for them will not be shaken. It will not be removed. They will forever be his people. And he also made that covenant with Abraham, in the book of Genesis, that they will forever be his people. He will forever be their God. And in the book of Malachi, he said that it's because of the love I have for you, sons of Jacob. That's why you are not yet consumed. If not for that, by now I would have destroyed you. But because of the love, the covenant I have, that's why you haven't been consumed. And he hates divorce, so he's not going to divorce his children. So I don't know where that the church is the new Israel came from. I mean, I'm not a Jew, I'm a Christian, and I should be saying, yeah, but no. The Bible does not say that. The Bible doesn't say that the church has replaced Israel. The covenant is still there with Israel. God has not broken it. He won't be God if he breaks his covenant just like that. He has made it, and it's going to be there forever. So even if the mountains shake, the earth goes, his covenant with Israel will still stand. So there you go. So he's telling them that they will return home. Tyranny and terror will be far from them. If they are attacked, it won't be by him. It will not be by him. So and if anyone attacks them, they will surrender to them. He hasn't sent any nation, and he will not send any nation to go and attack his children. He says no weapon that is formed against them will prevail. Any tongue that rises against them in judgment, they will condemn. This is all the promises that God made with Israel, and is still in effect today. It has not expired. The same way the blood of Christ has not expired. Because I remember one time I heard when a pastor said people should bring money. We're going to use that money to pray for the blood of Jesus to redeem us back again. And I'm thinking, like, seriously, when did the blood of Jesus expire that we now need to bring money to come and redeem our souls? It's just so wrong. It's just wrong. So the covenant God made with Israel has not expired. It will be there from everlasting to everlasting. So then in the final chapter, in this part 55, he's saying that it's an invitation. It's house fires also sang this song, Come to the River. Come to the water, all who are thirsty, come and drink. Come to the table, all who are hungry, come and feast. Those who are weary, those who are needy, come receive. Come to the river, come to the river, taste and see. God has not given me the gift of singing. So this is an invitation that those who are thirsty, those who are weary, those who are needy, those who are lacking, come and taste and see. Come and fill yourselves, drink the water, you will never be thirsty again. Come and eat, come and feast. He says that it's an everlasting covenant that he made that promise with David. You remember when David in 2 Samuel said he wanted to build the temple, and God said no. His hands are bloody, but his son will build it. But God, however, made a covenant with David that he will forever be with him. There will always be someone on the throne from his line. He will not forsake him. So this is his people, from David's line. So he's saying that that promise that he had made with David is still standing. So the people should turn to him. It's an invitation. It says turn to him, because God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. As the earth is far from the heaven, so are God's thoughts far from us. So his words will not return back to him without accomplishing that with which he has sent it. As the rain does not return back, it waters the ground. As the snow does not return back, it stays on the ground until it thaws and it melts. So also God's words will not return back void. They have to accomplish that which he has sent it. So this is the end of this part of Isaiah, second Isaiah, Deutero-Isaiah. So what do you think? Do you think original Isaiah penned this bit, or do you think it was penned by a different person who just took on, he didn't put his name to the book, so he just penned it and added it to Isaiah's work? I will say what I think at the end. So I'll see you in the next part, the final part of Isaiah. God bless you greatly. Bye.